in high school, a girl who had been my best friend in elementary school, she thought that she was too heavy. She's built like I am, and she was not super popular, and I guess she decided that part of the reason she was unliked and unpopular was because of her shape. So she stopped eating, and she stopped eating so much that she passed out, and after the second time that she passed out, her parents took her to the hospital, and they realized that she had anorexia. And so they treated her for anorexia, they gave her a healthy eating plan and told her parents to make sure she ate, and they sent her home with a nice healthy eating plan to help her get better. Well, because her parents are now watching her eat and making sure that she ate, like they sit her at the table and she had to eat while she was at the table, she's like, fine, I'll eat. And then about a month into this new plan, her English teacher, who had her after lunch, realized that she went to the bathroom every single day after lunch. And so the teacher followed her into the bathroom and found her making herself get sick. So because she was being forced to eat, and because they hadn't solved the original problem, which is how she felt about herself, she just found another way to solve that problem. She became bulimic. And so when she was hospitalized the second time with the bulimia, the nurse said to her, "Why are you trying to kill yourself?" And she says, "I'm not trying to kill myself, I'm just trying to lose some weight." And she's like, if you continue to do this, you will kill yourself. And it turns out, because I teach health, I tell my kids the statistic. The mental illness with the highest mortality rate are eating disorders, which is, it's more than depression. You would think depression would lead to suicide and that would have the highest mortality rate. But eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of mental illnesses. Another story, I had a student whose birth certificate is labeled female, but when this student was in 5th or 6th grade, they just didn't feel right. And this student decided that they felt more like a male than a female. Changed his name, asked people to call him him. And it's been a hard road for this student. I had this student in class, and I didn't understand it. I don't understand transgenderism. And so I asked the student if they would come out to have ice cream with me one day at the parlor. And so this student and another friend of his joined me, and we sat there for a couple hours, and I said, "Help me understand this. I don't get it. I don't understand." And so they explained that for both of them, and this is not necessarily all people that feel transgendered, but in both of their situations, they suffer from what's called dysmorphia. And dysmorphia is when there is a part of you, either physical or emotional, that you think is so flawed that it needs to be fixed or hidden, changed, like you hate it. There's a part of you that you hate. And for these two students, it's their gender. And so they felt that the gender that was assigned to them at birth was wrong and incorrect and needed to be fixed. And it was a very enlightening conversation. They explained to me that just because you're transgender doesn't necessarily mean that you like to date people of the, like this gender that you switched, you know what I mean? It has nothing to do with sexual orientation, which I didn't know that. I figured if I feel like a boy, then therefore I should like girls. They said that's not necessarily true. You can feel like a boy and also want to be with boys. They said it also doesn't make a difference how you dress, because the one student who calls himself he wears his hair long and sometimes wears like boots, like girls like boots. And I was very confused by this. I'm like, I don't understand how you say that you're he, but then you dress like a girl at times, and I was very confused. And he told me, he says, that has nothing to do with it. It's that he says, I feel fundamentally like something is wrong with me, and he has identified that is his gender. And just another tip on that, I also did not know this. The name that this child was born with, to him, if someone says that name, even if they're not speaking to him, if someone even says that name to him, it feels like fingernails down a blackboard. He says that name is so offensive to him. He calls it, the name for that is your dead name. So if the name that people call you, that you were born with, that you don't identify with anymore, is called your dead name. And for this child, he said that to hear that name is just like ugh, it's just cringy. So both of the children that I met with have been treated for dysmorphia. And so I sit there and I think, oh my gosh, these poor kids suffering from this, and people who are suffering from dysmorphia. And And dysmorphia and anorexia both have something in common, and that is self-hatred. It's self-bitterness. You hate something about yourself so much that you're willing to go to these extremes. You know, I asked this child, I said, when did you choose to be a boy? And he said, I never chose this. He's like, why would I ever choose something that's so hard, that will make people hate me, that will make people give me such a hard time? Why would I intentionally choose something so terrible? And I was like, that makes sense to me. Why would you choose something? Because I think a lot of adults in my generation and teachers like, well, they're just trying to get attention. And I don't think in this child's situation that he's trying to get attention. You know, there's some underlying things that I won't go into that I can kind of see like why he feels this way. But, you know, I get to thinking like, what would make someone hate themselves so much? And then I think back to, so when I was a kid, I was built like my friend. I've been built like this my whole life, pretty much. I was not the skinniest kid, especially in my UCA days when I worked with the cheerleaders, and they were all, 5'2" and 100 pounds, and all the boys are fawning all over them. I really and truly, for a long time, thought that the reason, I've told you guys this before, I really and truly thought the reason I'm single is because I'm fat. And if I could just lose weight, if I could just lose 20 pounds, and then I'd be thin, and then I'd be married. Like if I look in a mirror, like a vanity mirror that's like waist up, I'd be like, look, I'm really pretty. But if I look in a full-length mirror, I'm like, ugh, like ew. And I really kind of felt like I was in this battle with my body. Around the time I turned 40, I was having a lot of trouble with my knees. And I went to I could barely walk up and down stairs. It was bad. And so I went to a sports medicine doctor, and he took x-rays, and he says, well, you have the knees of a 75-year-old. I'm like, great. He says, we're going to give you partial knee replacements, and then when those are shot, by then you'll be old enough to get a full knee replacement. All right. So we scheduled the surgery both times, because I had 2 different surgeries. Both times I went in thinking I was getting a partial knee replacement. Both times I came out with no new hardware. Both times he got in, he's like, well, that was worse than we thought. It's worse than the MRI showed. You have no cartilage in 2 of the 3 sections of your knee. I just cleaned up a little bit, and, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to need full knee replacements in both knees. And I was like, that's terrible news. It's nothing. When you're 40, you don't want to hear that you need full knee replacements. He's like, so we'll scrape it, and we'll do surgeries and do this. They're called jelly shots until you just can't bear the pain anymore, and then we'll do the full knee replacements. We'll try and buy ourselves some time. So in the next 5 to 10 years, you'll probably need full knee replacements. And I did not like to hear that. So my friends in my small group, one of my friends was praying about it one day, and she heard the word bitterness. And I was like, so she told me that, and I'm like, bitterness. So I got to thinking, I'm like, I really don't think I'm a bitter person. Like I'm not perfect by any means, but I don't think bitter is a word that you would normally use to describe me. So I didn't understand that, and I just kept talking to the God about it and praying about it. And I remember I was walking out of school across by Delights. I was that like driveway down there by Delights, and I was praying about it, and I realized that it's self-bitterness that I was struggling with. I hated my body. I felt like there was me and my body, and we were always like fighting each other. Like I was always trying to get her under control, and she was always trying to get me to do whatever, like it just felt like it's constant trying to diet, constantly trying to lose weight, constantly looking in the mirror and going, ugh. And I just, it's like this curtain was pulled away, and I realized that I had listened to the enemy as he had whispered in my ear, you're fat, you're ugly, you're not enough, and this is the reason you're single. You're miserable. Look how pretty and skinny those people are, and if you would just lose weight, then you would be pretty and skinny too. And I just realized that I hated my body, and so I repented of that. I asked the Lord into that situation, and I decided I would take 1 year where I would just eat whatever I want. I'm not going to diet. I'm not going to worry about what I eat. I'm just going to live my life. And so for a year, I did. I didn't worry about counting calories or like getting back on the wagon, the diet wagon. And I gained a little bit of weight, but not much. And when I kind of got to a place where I was kind of getting a little heavier than I really needed to be, I hit the highest mark of weight I'd ever been. I was like, all right, Lord, like, I feel good, and I'm enjoying not worrying about what I eat, but also I'm getting unhealthily fat. So, and I felt like the Lord helped me to swing back the other way, and I'm kind of camped out weight-wise, a little heavier than I was when I made that decision, but now I look in the mirror and I'm like, this is my body. Like, this is who I am, and it's fine, and it's okay, because the Lord helped me break that stronghold of self-bitterness. Because there were plenty of times when I had eaten too much, and I was like, oh, why did I eat all that? You know, I could take the easy way out. I could go in the bathroom, and I could get rid of everything I just ate. So I had that. I recognized in myself that dysmorphia. I recognized in myself that almost bulimic tendency in my brain to want to be that way. And when my friend said that word bitterness, it created an opportunity for the Lord to speak to me about lies I had been believing about my own feelings about myself. And so there is a stronghold of self-bitterness. It's an evil spirit, just like unloving and rejection and all these other ones we've been talking about. Some experts, people who are like really people who believe in strongholds and have a lot of experience with strongholds, they believe that autoimmune diseases are caused by self-bitterness. That if you hate your body, that your body's like, okay, you know, like our bodies innately know what is self and not self. So if I get a splinter, my body's like, that's not me. I got to attack that. So experts in strongholds believe that if I hate myself, my body will start to be like, oh, we hate this, I'm going to attack it. And so there are some who believe that autoimmune diseases are caused by a root of self-bitterness in your life. But so when I was thinking about my own self-bitterness, I had to go to the Bible and be like, what does the Bible say about who I am? What does the Bible say about my body? And for me, I constantly, when I did this verse last week, I constantly had to come back to Psalm 139. For you created my inmost being. You, the Lord, created my inmost being. You, my Lord, knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, Lord, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. God don't make junk, right? He made me fearfully and wonderfully. His works are wonderful, and I know that. My frame was not hidden. This one, for me, this one always hit. My frame, my shape was not hidden from you, Lord, when I was made in the secret place. Lord, you know, those of you, have you seen that movie Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito? The premise is these scientists are trying to make this superhuman, and they give all the good traits to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then Danny DeVito gets all the crap traits. And they're like supposed to be like they're twin brothers, but they're total opposites. The Lord doesn't have like good traits and bad traits, and he gives some people all the good ones and some people all the bad ones. It's not like he's like, well, I'm going to give you some good, I got some of these crappy traits here, I'll throw a couple of those crappy traits in there too. Like, that's not the way he makes us. He makes us to be perfect and beautiful. His plan for us is for us to be beautiful, for all of us to use our gifts for the kingdom in the best way possible. But as I was thinking about self-bitterness, I also come to this one. And here's the one from Matthew. I'll tell you, it's in the Bible a lot. It says, someone had asked, what's the number one rule? And in Matthew, he quotes, he says, Jesus is saying this, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second rule is to love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this. But because I don't memorize scripture, like I know the scripture, I just don't know where it is. Like I'm like, I can quote it, but I couldn't have said, this was in Matthew 12. Like some people just know I don't have that kind of brain. So I Google search like Bible, love your neighbor as yourself. And so then there's this website called Bible Hub, and it has all the places where you can find it. And I did not realize this is all over the Bible. So it's in Leviticus, that's Old Testament. It's in Matthew, I have it written down. It's in Matthew twice. It's in Mark 3 times. It's in Luke. It's in Romans. It's in Galatians, and it's in James. So this phrase that Jesus said was so important that 3 of the 4 gospel writers wrote it down, And that those writing to the churches after Jesus' death continued to talk about it. Like, this is so supremely important. Jesus says, if you get nothing else, get this. You know, his thing is, if you don't take anything else away from knowing me and learning about me, take this away. This is my number one tip to everyone. First, to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and strength. Next, to love your neighbor as yourself. Most people go to this when they're talking about love your neighbor. They're like, yeah, I got to love my neighbor. I got to be nice to my neighbors. I got to be kind. I've got to overflow onto them. Yes, you should. But he doesn't just say the second is love your neighbor, the end. He says love your neighbor as yourself. That means we have to love ourselves. Jesus is saying you should love me first, fill up with me, come to me, I'll fill you up. And from there, you're going to love yourself and your neighbors. He doesn't just say love everyone else. He says you also have to love yourself. You have to believe that you are loved. You have to believe that you are worth him dying for. He loved you so much, he died for you. He didn't die for all your neighbors, but not you. He died because he loves you that much. The Lord loves you so much. And for us to not love ourselves is to stand next to Picasso, looking at his work, being like, well, I mean, like, this part's nice, but over here, you could have done that better. It's like standing next to Monet in front of water lilies and being like, I mean, it's a good feel, but I think you should have used some more purple. You used way too much blue in that. You know, you would never dare say that to the artists, to the master craftsman, you know? And so when we sit there and look in the mirror and go, ew, we are standing next to the Lord going, you messed up. You didn't make me very well. And he's like, no, you're believing a lie. I've made you perfectly. I love you. I love everything about you. That psalm that Steph picked, fully known. He says, I know everything about you. The Lord even knows the things you don't say out loud because you know that they're wrong to say out loud. You know those little things that you think about people, but you're like, I won't say that because I shouldn't think that? He knows you think that. He knows how you feel about yourself. He knows how you feel about other people. And you are fully known and fully loved. He knows all your flaws, and still he loves you. But you are not flawed in your making. We are flawed because we believe lies. We are flawed because we act on our own and we get away from these two rules. When we don't love the Lord, when we don't go to him, when we don't love ourselves, when we don't love others, we are walking away from the Lord, and that's where our flaws come from. When we stay close and nestled up to the Lord, when we believe the truth that he speaks over us, then we're not flawed. We're acting in our own gifts. So my entreat to you this week, my challenge to you this week, is to ask the Lord if there are places where you don't believe that you are loved, that you are worth, that you are ew or gross. Is there any part of you that thinks ew when you look in the mirror? And give him an opportunity to speak into that. Give him an opportunity to say, you're beautiful. I made you perfectly. I didn't make you without a flaw. I don't make junk. I gave you all the best things. And no one has a better set of traits than you do. Don't compare yourself to others. I made you perfectly, and I love you. And all of God's people said, amen. All right. If you have not surrendered your heart to the Lord and you would like to do that, you can come on down during this song. If you have any prayer requests at the end of service, I will gladly pray over any of you. If you guys want to stand up and sing with us, I Surrender All, number 596, verses 1 and 4.